My name is Obianuju Ukafo. I think you should probably see my name on your screen. I work with the hosts for today's webinar. That's AFEX Commodities Exchange Limited. And AFEX is basically Nigeria's first private sector commodities exchange firm. And we basically have a lot of activities, but I think a key highlight that everyone can quickly cue into is that we are a bridge that basically connects farmers to markets, but also helps them access finance. But more pointedly, especially because of what we want to talk about today, we have a financial product in the market, a platform for people to invest in commodities that we call COMEX. And it basically allows people to diversify their investment assets through commodities. And so I think we launched COMEX at the beginning of the year in January specifically. And really, we've hit some very amazing milestones. And so when we were considering the entire idea of this series, we knew that one thing that we definitely wanted to talk about was our experience, but also a lot of other experts' experience in using stories to sell financial products. And so that's basically what this webinar will be about. And I think I have a very brilliant panel along for the ride. We have just two people that make up our panel, but they are sure to present very different perspectives that will enable us really carry out and enjoy ourselves during this webinar. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chats now. I'm seeing Umar saying that he can't hear. Are you able to hear now? I would always also suggest that if you can't hear, maybe you haven't joined with your audio. So could you please try that? Okay. So just by way of quick introductions, our two panel members for today are Sane Stimans, who is an entrepreneur and a senior advisor for AgriLogic. And later on, the panelists will have space to really get into introducing themselves and telling us all the many exciting things that they do. Our second panelist for today is Joshua Chibueze, and he is the co-founder and CMO of PiggyVest. So just quickly before we start, I'll run through a few house rules. And I always say that our house rules here are very simple. We like our webinars to be as engaging as possible. So we want people to use the chat box, but also the Q&A function to basically share their thoughts and engage with what the discussions are at every particular time. And so just to make sure our keyboards are working, we would like people to just answer where they're joining in from. If you could just type in where you're joining in from today, so we know where all of us are from, right? We're here in our office in Abuja, and by we, I'm representing AFEX. So when I say we, just kind of understand what I'm talking about. Hi, Emmanuel from Lagos. I see a lot of people are from Lagos. Oh, I've seen my Abuja person now. Hi, Johnson. Ooh, Amsterdam, but dreaming of Lagos. All right. There's someone from PH. Oh, someone from Saudi Arabia. I think we have quite a reach. You're welcome, everyone. I hope you've had a good day so far. Hi, Tosin from Lagos. It's nice to meet you. I'm waiting for a couple more people. Also, as you're doing this, you can also kind of tell us your expectations for the webinar. Also in the chat box, just from like the topics and maybe wherever it is that you saw the post about the webinar. What were you expecting to learn coming to join us today? Hi, Adana from Abuja, who's using the AFEX Nigeria handle. It's very nice to meet you guys. Oh, there's someone from Oyo also. Hi. So please also tell me what your expectations are from the webinar. I think it will help us both as the moderators, but also the panelists to kind of tailor our conversations to really satisfy your curiosity and your interest in joining this webinar. Oh, hi. Okay, so you got our post from social media. You're a commercial farmer from Abuja. It's very nice to meet you. Please continue to interact in the chat box, even as the conversations go on. And please also, you can use the Q&A box to drop any questions that occur to you in the course of the conversations that we're having today. And so I will just quickly hand over to, I think, Sane to start us off and kind of give us an introduction of herself, but also dive into her first views on the topic that we have for today. Over to you, Sane.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to see an audience representing all different angles of Nigeria and the rest of the world as well. It's very nice to be here today. Very quick introduction. My name is Sanne Stemers. I'm Dutch by passport, but I normally spend my time in Nigeria. Unfortunately, not at the moment, but can't wait to be back in Lagos. I work as a consultant through my company AgriLogic. We do a lot of impact measurement and matchmaking between entrepreneurs and investors in agribusiness. I've been working with AFEX on a number of topics as well as several others. And then I'm also my own entrepreneur, and I have a chocolate factory in Surulere, Lagos. It's my pleasure to be here today to talk about the topic of story selling. For me, actually, selling is providing information to your customers, providing enough information and appropriate information to make sure that customers actually have a good idea what you can offer, what your product is, so they can take their own decision about whether they want or need the product. And it really depends on your audience, and it really depends on how do you make sure that you tell a fair story, while at the same time filling all the blanks of what your customer wants to listen to. Stories help. Stories provide clarity. Case study examples will allow people to get a clear understanding of what it is that you do, but also statistics might have a lot of value in this. So we'll dive into this a bit later, but these are my first thoughts, and I'm looking forward to exploring this with all of you.
Oh, that's my bad. Sorry. I was just saying that we'll quickly hand over to Josh to give his first views and also an introduction of himself.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. My name is Joshua Chibueze. I'm one of the co-founders of PiggyVest. We launched in 2016, basically as a very, very small company who just wanted to help its users automate their savings, right? But then over the years, we've been able to grow our users to over 1.5 million users to date, with very, very minimal advertising. And the numbers are pretty much growing rapidly since then. So it's been 4 years of doing this in Nigeria, and it's been very challenging. I look forward to engagements with everyone. And for me here, everything we've done at PiggyVest is basically selling a story, right? So in a market where you have competition from all the banks, all the asset management companies, all the microfinance banks, you have to come out with something very different. And I think that's what we tried to do at PiggyVest when we decided to enter the market. And I'm looking forward to discussing some more eventually. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I think we're coming right back to you because we just want you to kind of take us through your presentation on the first things you have for us in this webinar.
Okay. So when I'm being told to do stuff like this, I just like to kind of like just tell my own story, right? How we started, how we grew, some of the challenges we faced, and the most important thing is how we were able to get word to our customers to use the product through storytelling. Right. So we're a team of we're three co-founders. We're all under 30. I think the oldest of us is about 28. And we started together when we left school. We're building up the companies, and then it didn't quite work out well. We failed a lot of times, at least 6 times, until PiggyVest came up in 2016. So it was via a tweet. There was a tweet that went viral on the internet where someone was able to save 365,000 from putting aside 1,000 in a box every day. So that happened, and then everyone was interested. It started to go viral. Everyone wanted to save. But the options with which they wanted to save then was actual traditional physical boxes. So there were people on the internet, on Twitter then, trying to retail these wooden boxes to people to buy and save. And we saw that as an opportunity, and we decided to do something about it. And that was how Piggy Bank at the time was born. So Piggy Bank then was just, instead of putting 1K in a box every day, just set up a standing instruction and then we'll debit your account is 1,000 naira every day. And then you would draw it after 3 months. And that was it. In the first year, there were lots of fears, lots of things we weren't sure of. None of us have any banking background. We're computer science, computer engineering, and mechanical engineering. So we started asking a lot of questions because we're pretty much building from outside in. We didn't understand the banking industry. So we're just building based on what people wanted. So there was no prior knowledge or anything. It was just, okay, people wanted to put aside 1K every day. How do we make them do it? And because of our experience with building products, before PiggyVest, we had built a platform that has over 1 million users. So we have some good experience with building products and services for the B2C market in Nigeria. So we're able to leverage that experience to build a product based on what people were actually saying. And we did that in the first year, we did 21 million. By the second year, we had a partnership with a commercial bank here in Nigeria, and then we grew our numbers by over 3,000%. We did about 700 million the next year. And, we started to get, word out there. And one thing we tried to leverage on was we focused our marketing a lot on women, because when it comes down to it, I think women are more financially responsible than men. So while we're doing digital ads on Twitter, on Instagram, we focused a lot of those ads on women, because at the end of the day, women are also good storytellers. So a woman uses a product and it works well for them, they will most likely tell their friends about it. So we focused our energy there, and then we also did a couple of sponsorships, and most importantly, we made sure we're offering a better service. So banking in Nigeria has just been banking. People are not getting the actual banking service. So that's what we try to focus on. How can we provide a different experience from what everyone is completely used to, from the product angle to the marketing angle to the customer service angle, which is the most important angle? How can we be different? How can we tell a better brand story? And personally, because I've been doing branding marketing for a very long time, I knew that I had to focus on the customer success team. So I built up a customer service team, invested heavily in that, trainings and everything. And I would say right now, if you go on Twitter and you just put out a question, who has one of the best customer service solutions, or in the fintech industry, you most likely get a PiggyVest mention. And I want to say that was very, very deliberate. We decided to focus on it because we knew that, yes, the product was not enough, but customers do have issues. And when they have these issues, it should be resolved as soon as possible. In the third year, we raised finance from thankfully local investors and for international investors, but more of local investors. But we raised about $1.1 million. And I would say we spent only about 30 to 40% of that money because the business itself was already sustainable, right? So we're just raising the funds for, let's get people that can help us, can go to battle for us, people who can, face regulation, all of those things. That's the reason why we're going for that. I wanted to acquire our own license. So we acquired a microfinance bank license, but apparently that is not even enough to sort out the operations that we're running with. So even right now, we're trying to acquire our own asset management license. And I would say we've continued to grow. So by the beginning of last year, we're helping our users save 1 billion naira per month. And this has grown consistently. But what shocked me the most was, when the pandemic came. So, it was a shocker for everybody because businesses were taking the heat, everything was going on. But we realized that the only time we felt it was just the first week of the lockdown. So people got the initial shock and then everyone did not know what to do. So there was a pushback with savings then. But I think after like a week or two, everything kicked back up and we're wondering, wow, okay, people are actually saving more in the pandemic. So even right now, we're doing way, way, way more numbers than we even started doing in January. And I think it's a testament to the fact that we have successfully built a brand that people could actually trust, even regardless of the pandemic. So I'd say everything has, boiled down to intentionality, focusing on the things that really, really matter. So when you create a product and customers use that product, you need to be able to focus on how the customers feel after using your product because that is what they sell. So they sell a feeling, and which means if we're going to build an app, we want to make sure that the buttons are working. There's a reason for that. Like they want to make sure that it's seamless. We're taking feedback. Everything just boils down to making the customer happy. Once the customer is happy, and then you can put a small incentive and say, okay, if you bring in your friend, I'll pay you for that. And that's exactly what we did. So make the customers happy by providing them with a service that they would not get anywhere else. Talking about transparency, how you're seeing your interest, how you're seeing your money, how you have control over your money, the transparency, the flexibility, the discipline. So it was a completely different experience. And then it was easy for people to then go on and, bring in their friends to use the product. And over the years, there's been lots of challenges. I mean, because of the way it's structured, we work with a lot of third-party applications, and sometimes it can be the banking infrastructure that is down, and then the customer probably withdrew money and they've not gotten it, and because needs is probably down, the customer is calling you out. All of those things exist. People are still calling in to say, okay, how can we trust you? And then you're telling them they're almost 5 years in the industry with assets over 25 billion, and like, okay, how many offices do you have? So it's been a challenge, telling people that, oh, we just have one office. And the truth is, we don't need another office, right? But it's having to get people to understand that this is where the market is at right now. And this is like the new normal. You don't have to walk into a bank or to get certain things done. You can actually save. And overall, what we're really trying to do is make sure we can bring down opportunities for young people. Young people are disadvantaged, especially here in Nigeria. It's a very, very skewed system. So we want young people to be able to, from when they're earning 100K a month or 50,000 naira a month to when they start to earn 1 million a month, we want to be there with them and help them create the wealth they need to carry on. So I think that's pretty much how we've been able to go about it. And I think that's where I'll end my presentation.
Thank you so much. I will say that one thing that I have noticed with PiggyVest and the storytelling is that almost every interview that I have watched or every place that I have seen either you or one of your co-founders talk, you talk about how it all started with the story of seeing the person breaking the piggy bank at the end of the year and having
Yeah,
all
because
this.
that's really what we saw.
Yeah. But I appreciate the consistency. I think that's what I wanted to point out. That
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's a very important aspect of storytelling
Yeah.
that people do tend to miss out on sometimes. All right, thank
Mhm.
you so much. So I will just hand over to Sane to give us her own quick presentation.
Yes. So let me quickly put a few images on screen, because it's always nicer to look at a nice image of a farm instead of looking at just my face, I presume. So let me just quickly walk through a few things. So where Joshua actually shared his story about how to reach as many people as possible with the stories of what saving can do. My perspective is actually the other way around. So what I often do is I work for investors, and that can be different type of investors. I'll get into that in a bit. So one single audience, but who want to understand how their investment of 1 million, 10 million, or $100 million is going to be spent and what impact it achieves. And this is actually a trend that has been developing quite quickly. So if we look at the market 10 years ago, a lot of banks and investors were hardly considering impact or sustainability or environmental and social challenges. Only maybe a few development banks were trying to operate in the area, but what we've seen over the past decade, maybe, is an explosion of companies that are now wanting to invest in impact. So it's no longer just the development banks that used to try and boost investment through impact, but it's also private equity funds who are solely focused on impact investing. There are angel investors, so individuals who are looking to invest their money not just in something that brings them great returns, but also something that fulfills them in terms of doing something useful. And even most commercial banks and financial services providers are now considering impact in their investment decisions. Understanding what your impact is, making sure you have at least no negative impact, is starting to become a minimum requirement. In the current investment landscape, you can't just keep polluting the world or abusing people. Somebody will punish you for it. Positive impact can actually be a selling point. If you actually make the world a little bit better in whichever way you think you can do that, there's a whole new segment of investors that opens up. And these investors actually in general are more long-term focused. They might be more flexible in the financial instruments that they offer. So there's all these different segments that are now looking at investing in impact. I'll just show you two case studies. So what we see here is a case for an impact investment fund. Partially commercial, partially funded by governments, but certainly aiming to make a profit. And the investor is an office in the UK. The investment itself was a factory producing fertilizer locally. The impact they were aiming to achieve was increased yields by making fertilizer available. And the audience in this case was just themselves. They weren't planning on sharing this any further. They just wanted their investment committee to have an understanding of what the impact could be. What we looked at was actually two different components. So one was the impact on livelihoods of smallholders, and one was the food security for Nigeria. How much extra food can we grow locally so that we don't become fully dependent on food imports, especially with current Naira exchange rates. That's been a good thing to pursue. There's been a few challenges in this case because it's always hard to figure out where the money is going, where the impact is supposed to be achieved, and especially if you have to estimate it up front. I'll get into challenges in a little bit as well. The second one is actually not so much a traditional investment company, but it's actually a chocolate company who is investing in their own supply chain. They invest in training, and through this training, they hope to improve farmer livelihoods by allowing them to farm better, to make their farms more profitable. So the primary audience of an assessment like this is the actual chocolate maker, but then secondary audience is actually everybody who ever enters a supermarket to buy chocolate. So on both ends of the chain, there's actually a lot of farmers that you need to consider, and there's a lot of consumers that you need to consider, as much as it all goes through one or two companies in the middle. Looking at selling impact stories in cases like these, there are a few challenges. A story has to be simple, because otherwise somebody may not understand and may not relate to it. But it also has to be accurate, it has to be honest, it has to be credible. And achieving that balance is not always as easy. Creating a message that's understandable while informing the audience, but also doing justice to the complexity and the reality on ground is a very careful balance, and it requires a lot of considerations and sometimes even trade-offs. The methodology is not always easy to develop. Data is not always available. You don't actually always know how much impact you have. You might hear a story from one farmer, how he's so happy that his yields are improved. But then that does not mean that all farmers achieve the same impact. The quality of data is always a bit of a challenge as well. Even if you collect it yourself and you start asking people directly, you still might not get the full picture if you don't ask the right questions. If you rely on existing data sources, it's even harder because you don't know how it was collected. But then at the same time, you have to juggle with the budget that you have available. You can't just do anything. Another challenge that I've come across is that we're all people. Farmers are people, companies are made up of people, and every person has their own different focus. Some people are much more interested in the environment. Some people are much more interested in profitability. Some are much more interested in livelihoods. Everybody has their different focus, and that makes it really hard to focus your message and find something that appeals to a larger audience. And I think the last point that we do need to consider, money does not realize the impact. It's people that realize the impact. It's people that do the actual work. Just making an investment does not make sure that farming is suddenly a better reality. You need to make sure it ends up in the right place and it's used in the right time. And that's in that sense, I think Joshua is a very good example already, because Joshua just raised his over 1 million investment in order to reach more people and to allow more people to create a savings culture. But it still requires Joshua and his team to do the work. Just raising the money alone does not reach all those people. So these are some factors that we've come across, and I think we need to stick to time a little bit. So I won't go into too much detail here at this point. But I'm open to questions and answers, and I'll let Obianuju take it from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think because I will keep you talking in a bit and ask my first question, but I wanted to appreciate what you said basically about complexity in storytelling and how we have such a complex reality, but stories often have to be simple, right? And really folding that into stories that are then able to be understood and as clear as they should be can present quite a challenge. So I like to see that tension, because I think interesting stories do come out about from the tension between we're doing a complex work, but we have to put it as simply as our audience needs it to be. And I think a lot of good storytelling can come from that place. But my question is actually considering, and I think you have kind of touched on it, but how how much more important, or whether they're on the same level, right? Stories are to bigger investors than, say, retail clients. Is it as important to get into storytelling if you're just trying to raise money from the bigger guys than if you wanted to get a whole group of retail people together?
To be honest, I think it might even be more important if you're trying to raise money, especially if it's a large amount. A story to individual consumers is very important, but everybody has their different focus. If you're looking at one specific investor, you need to really understand what they look at, and you need to tailor the message to what they look for. What I would normally advise entrepreneurs in this domain, if you're looking for investment and if you're looking to raise investment, firstly consider what your story is based on your own motivation. Look at what you want to do, what assets you have, what you're good at doing, and then find the investor that suits you. Not everything is always a match. Not every customer is your customer. Not every investor is your investor. And you need to firstly be driven to do something for yourself, know why you want to do it, know how you want to do it, and then find the right person. Selling a story, an impact story, and not just selling it, but actually having it towards investors can open new doors. There are certain investors that are much more interested in the stories now. They would not even consider you if you're not doing something good. So it does make sense. It's important, I would say, even as a qualifying factor, because more and more banks will not invest just randomly anymore. They will want to know that at least you're not doing any harm. But ideally, you would do a bit more beyond that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think that's a good answer. I just want to go quickly to Josh to ask about authenticity, which I think is very important, especially in this age. So there are many channels really that we can use to talk to people. But what then happens is, actually when you're trying to sell true stories, is that you can then begin to sound, allow me to use the word fake, right? As if you're making up a lot of things, or as if you're trying to sell through people trade backdoor, right? So how do you maintain authenticity while telling stories when you know that the end goal is still selling?
So at the end of the day, you have to be selling something that people need, right? So when we try to do whatever we do, we have that at the back of our mind, like what we are doing within our hearts is genuine. I think it starts from there, and then it's easier to then sell to other people. Now it's very challenging. I mean, it's very, because this is actually one of our major challenges, getting people to continue to trust the brand. And you know what I always say this, like when you advertise your product and people use your product and then they tell other people about the product, they should have the same experience, that the same way it was advertised, right? So I think one way we manage our authenticity about the brand is we try to be consistent with our services, right? When you build consistency, people will then start to trust you. So we have customers who have been using us for the past 4 years, for the past 3 years, 2 years, and they have nice things to say about the business. It's easier for those people to tell other people that, no, yes, I understand that this is new and you've not seen this type of thing before, but I've been using this for the past 3 years and it has worked very well and they've been consistently reliable. So all of those things matter. So it all boils down to service. As long as you're focused on giving the customer a superior service, it feeds into how people perceive the brand. So you start to look and feel very authentic, even when, and people don't even need to know too much. It's just because you've been consistent over the years. So I think that's one thing that I've been able to achieve.
And maybe I'll just quickly ask a question that has been dropped in the Q&A box, still to Josh. right? And I think this is mostly because you talked a lot about how your customers sometimes do a whole lot of the job of storytelling for you
Yes.
when they experience the product. And so someone was just asking, what initiatives did you take to boost that mouth-to-mouth type of advertising, that type of effect? What were some of the things that you did to generate that type of loyalty?
Okay. What we basically did was we implemented an in-app referral system. So the referral system basically encourages you to invite a friend, and then if the friend does X and Y, we will pay you and your friend some money. So that was basically what we did from the beginning. And over the years, we've stayed very consistent with that. In fact, that is pretty much what comprises of our customer acquisition cost. So it's just basically when we look at the unit economics of the business, how much can we spend to acquire one user? When you put that, on par with how long do you think this customer is going to continue saving on your platform? How much do you think you're going to be able to make from this, customer over time? And, when you do all of that calculation, it helps you arrive at a number you can actually spend to acquire one customer. And that's pretty much what we did. And that's how we came up with the economics of the referral system and everything. So that's pretty much what we did.
Thank you. I think later I will come back to this idea of referrals to kind of ask some questions around how to build a proper referral program that still allows people to love the brand despite the fact that they may be getting something. So that basically the focus is not just on what they're getting
Yes,
through
yeah.
referrals. Yeah, I'll come back to that. I just wanted Sana to ask something that I think was in her slides, right? Because she talked on a number of challenges that you have when you're telling stories. So this question really is on how you can then begin to address some of those challenges, right? How do you solve for complexity of issues when you're trying to sell stories? How do you solve for diverse people? Just some of those challenges you've highlighted. How do you solve for those issues, right?
I think the most important thing to start from is firstly have a very clear understanding of what it is that you want to tell. There is much importance in consistency, and it's actually something you mentioned earlier as well, Bianuju. At the end of every interview, there's the breaking of the piggy bank. You need to find something that you can consistently apply to different situations and to different people, but something that captures the essence of what you want to do. If you're an investor in agriculture, you want to consistently be able to show farmers that have gotten access to training, have gotten access to inputs, for example, and have been able to improve their farming practices because of it. So focus, I think, would be the first thing that is really important. The second thing, and I think I've already touched on it as well, is just make sure that you're not trying to sell something to the wrong person. If it's not your audience, if it's not your customer, if it's not your investor, don't even try. You can't force somebody to spend their money on you. You can only try to help them understand why you're the right person for them to invest their money in. And I think that might be even more important. So find the right partners. You don't need everybody in the world to invest in you. You just need one or two people, and find the ones that make sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's taking light where I am, but it's fine. Yeah, so I think Sana has really hinged on the importance of focus, right, and how that can help us kind of surmount a lot of the challenges around storytelling that she had highlighted earlier. And I want to go quickly to Josh to touch on something that I think Sana has mentioned now about audiences, right? And how really you can understand the type of audiences that you're talking to at each time and how you can efficiently manage that process, right? Because we're all like, I think was in the slide, human beings are quite diverse. So how are you able to break people into different audience groups, and how are you able to efficiently manage that entire process?
Um, all right. So when you think about a product like PiggyVest, it's I like to think about it like the people who are the people who can actually afford to put aside some money. It's a very large subset of even people who have a BVN. Because you're not just looking at people who can afford to, is you're looking at people who will trust you enough, and the people who can trust you enough are more of the young people than the older people, because the older people already trust their banks and everything. So when you look at what we offer, and you try to break it down, so okay, there are students, but then students will not give you the amount of money you're looking for, because students cannot actually afford to save. So you move up the ladder to, people who are working class people, or NYC people, at least people who earn an income. And then it starts to help you segment your users, and that's how you even create products. So we have 6 different products today on PiggyVest, and it's basically serves everyone from, I would say, from like 18 to about 45, right? So what we did is, the first product is the piggy bank product. So that's just like the core savings. What that does is it helps you build a culture. So if you don't know how to save, you never done it before, you just want something that disciplines you, you put the money aside there, you can automate it, but then you can only withdraw once a quarter, right? That's for people who are not just very mature with the product. But when you get to a certain maturity, it means you have excess money to put aside. That's You now move on to the safe lock product. So the safe lock product is for people who naturally do treasury bills, or who naturally do fixed income with fixed deposits with banks. So that is more, advanced people who can actually afford to put aside some money. So you now start going into the working class. So with knowing the audience for each of our products helps us tailor the messaging. So if we want to advertise SafeLock, for instance, we're talking to salary earners. So we're saying, okay, just got paid, SafeLock it, that kind of thing. As easy as that, but you find out that you have a product, and then you're saying the right things to the right people. Now for target savings is more geared towards young people who cannot afford to save for too long, So it's a 30-day savings, a short-term savings feature. And that's what that was created for. So if we're doing any marketing or any activation in schools, that's what we're selling. If we're doing anything on social media, want to get people, you can also save in groups. So that the target savings product was specifically created for young people and other people who also want to be able to plan their lives, to say, oh, I want to save for my rent, I want to save for school fees, and have everything in one place. Now, there are also another set of users who probably have savings everywhere. They're more mature, they have a little bit more money, and they understand the concept of saving in foreign currencies. So we created a product for them called the Flex Dollar, which will be later renamed Flex FX. And that's people basically go there and they're able to save in dollars. Then there's also another subset of people who have appetite for high risk investments, and also, from low to high, right? So there are people who can invest in agriculture because they understand the workings around it. There are people who would only wait for real estate. There are people who can invest in, fixed income. So you're able to segment, the audiences like that, because and you're able to create products that match those audiences. So I'd say it becomes easier on the marketing side, and that's how we're able to basically split our audience, and try to make sure we're telling the right people the right things, and we're not just selling a whole bunch of products to people. So when you come on the platform, we kind of like guide you or tell you everything about all of the features, and then help you decide which one is best. Can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. Can I ask quickly about some of the tech that helps you do that segmentation? Because those are like some different buckets of people for each product, right? And there would have to be a way to kind of tell this is who this person is.
Okay, so
So
We use a lot of
Sorry.
things in-house, but the one we use the most is Mixpanel. So Mixpanel helps with insights, analytics, but a lot of it is done in-house. So we have an in-house dashboard that we use to track all of these things, including the AUM on each product, all of those things. So it's mostly built in-house. But for tracking actions, things people do on the platform, we use Mixpanel for that.
Okay. Thank you so much. So if I could just go quickly to Sane. There's a question in the chat that I want to quickly address about the elements to be considered in order to tell effective stories that sell financial products. And I think maybe both of you can probably help with this question. Just basically, what elements should someone that is newly going into this be looking at to make their stories effective, especially when they're trying to sell a financial product?
I'd say three things. Firstly, know your audience. Know what is important for them. Understand what they are focused on. Secondly, know yourself. Know what you're talking about. Make sure that whatever story you're telling, you can defend it. You can answer any critical questions about it. Just make sure it's true. And I think thirdly, make it relatable. Make sure somebody actually can have sympathy for what you're trying to do. Make it personal.
Okay. I'm wondering if Joshua has something he wants to add.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So the person is basically asking about the elements to be considered in telling effective stories for financial products.
Well, so I'd say you have to have some level of transparency, right? So it's a very new industry, and a lot of people need to understand some of the workings of it. So an information that will be useful to a user is telling them, for instance, how their deposits work or how their withdrawals work and how you connect with third parties, and what it just basically helps you control the narrative when there's a problem. So it's always best to find ways to communicate that. So I think transparency is quite needed with that.
Thank you for that. I think I'm actually quickly running out of time, but I have, say, a question specifically for Sane on measuring impact and highlighting it, right? We've talked about how important impact is, especially in telling stories to investors who are looking to plug into businesses that are making a difference. So one question is always, how can you actually walk back from what it is you're doing to what impact you're having, and then what are the best ways to highlight that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of theory out there as well. So for anybody who's interested in measuring and communicating about their own impact, I would firstly recommend that you look into the framework that's called a theory of change. That really helps to connect the activities that you do to the big vision that you have and explain how those relate to each other. It helps you identify indicators for it. So anybody who's new to this field and wants to identify what stories to tell and how to tell them, I think that would be a really good starting point. And well, Wikipedia is always your best friend to start with these things. And I'm always happy to share as well.
Thank you so much. So I think first I would invite the audience members to still ask questions if they have. We can actually, if you feel more comfortable speaking, we can actually unmute you so that you can ask the question directly. Well, please let's keep the questions related to the context of the webinar and all that we've discussed so far. And I'll wait a bit for that, but if there's none, I would like to invite the panelists to give like their final thoughts. But let me just give you a few, say, seconds. But I do remember a question, yes, that I said I would come back to about referrals. And I think for Joshua, and I think my contention is that a lot of the times when you do referral programs, the brand can get lost in that people get stuck in just what they're getting, and not necessarily why they like the brand or what the brand is doing for them. And so, how do you manage that?
So I think that only happens when what you're selling is not providing enough value. So no matter what it is, as long as what you're selling, people need it and people can pay you for it, then I don't think it's possible for your people to get drowned in your referral, whatever referral strategy you have in place. But again, one thing to ensure is because people do the maths themselves, so make sure it's not too outrageous. Make sure it's something that if they try to do the maths themselves, they can arrive at something logical, right? So, but at the end of the day, you have to be selling something that works. If it doesn't work, then people will just do it, for the money. And then when they bring the people in, those ones are not going to have good things to say about the product. So it starts to die off from there. So first things first, create a product that works, and then be very, very logical about what you're giving out. And yeah, I think that helps.
Thank you so much. I think Joshua's hand is up to ask a question. So if the system admin can just help me. Joshua, if you're able to talk, you can just go ahead.
Okay, I'm seeing some questions. Yeah, I don't know if I should go ahead with this question.
Yes, please. We can also answer that. Oh yes, I see someone dropping.
Okay. So I see, what does PiggyVest invest depositors' money into to guarantee the promised return? Well, so we strictly do treasury bills, commercial papers, government bonds. But the good thing that we did about 2 years ago was have a very good partner. So we work with ICO Capital, and they were able to advise us early on to invest in long-term instruments, and that's the only way we're even able to sustain our rates right now. But if it gets to a point where we're no longer able to sustain the rate based on economic factors, all of the rates will drop. So what is the tax obligation like for you guys, and does that affect your customers' returns? Well, we expect our customers to pay their tax, but in some states they are very, 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 very strict with their tax. So we also pay tax on the interest we pay out to customers, but that's just about it. What license does PiggyVest hold that permits them to operate? Are they registered with the SSC or CBN? So when we started out with partnerships with microfinance banks, and then we raised some funding in 2018, and then we acquired a microfinance bank, Gold Microfinance Bank. But then we realized that we didn't even want to go the route of being a microfinance bank. We wanted to be an asset management company, so we needed to work with one. So what we did was we also acquired a cooperative license and a money lender's license, and then we had a trustee partnership with ICO Capital, who basically helps us manage the funds properly. I don't know if the last
one here for Sane. Right? If I can just read that out. Hello, Sane. How have you been able to reach investors and secure their trust on impact investment initiatives?
The interest is actually really growing, and the credibility is really growing. So I've been based in Nigeria for the past 6 years almost. I've been working in West Africa for the past 15 years. But it's only the last year or two, I think, that I've been seeing a lot of interest from investors looking to create impact through their investors. I'm in touch with several. They're offerings as well as demands are getting much more realistic currently. Because at first it was always a bit of a struggle between an investor wanting to rule out all risk and the reality of a startup entrepreneur. So yes, I've been reaching a lot of different investors. There are definitely opportunities out there. Yeah, I think it reaches too far, also considering the time to go into every level of detail here. But I'm happy to connect after if you want to discuss it.
Okay. Quickly, there's a question here on how do you tailor storytelling to sell financial products to more sophisticated investors?
It's by the kind of products you have. So more sophisticated investors are looking to invest in real estate stocks, FX. So what you do is you create products around to satisfy their desires to basically expand their portfolio. So I think it's just by product dev for us. So that's how we try to, because if you don't have what they're looking for, then they would not feel the need to use your product. So we realized that they wanted to do all of these things. We're currently in talks. We don't currently offer stocks directly on our platform, but we're currently in talks with companies who already offer stocks to actually offer their stocks to our users on our platform. So everything is done through, we know we wouldn't have to build everything. So we're going the platform model, basically building the ones we can build and opening it up for people who can build services and who can, work with us to ensure that, our users are getting the best products out there.
Thank you for that. I think still for Joshua, there's a question on your customer service. The person is just asking, what are some effective ways of portraying customer service that have worked for you?
Well, so it's a major focus, right, in the company, and it is. I think if there is no direct relationship with the customer service team, the product team, the marketing team, and the tech team, then there's going to be a problem. So, for instance, I'm the marketing guy, but I have product knowledge, and I'm also handling the customer service team. So what that does is I can automatically get instant feedback from the customer service team, and then do whatever I have to do with marketing. But before I do that marketing, I can also liaise with product because I understand a bit of product management and product dev to can talk with them. So I would say for us, we got lucky because we have a team that works together, to achieve this. But I think outside of that, it's just been laser focused on ensuring that customers, are being delighted. And then we noticed that our social media channels are actually extremely important. So we focused more on our social media channels. So we have more people who are answering questions on Instagram and Twitter, because that's where a lot of people go to talk about things that they love. So when they use a product and they love a product, they either go on Twitter to talk about it or they go on Instagram to talk about it. And when they talk about it, they get retweets, they get likes, you get impressions. And what that does is it creates a ripple effect and other people hear about it. And then they're very curious at that moment. And the fastest way is they find your Twitter handle or they find your Instagram handle and then they send you a message right there. So you want the best hands, that's what we did. We basically got the best hands to be in front of our social media channels. But other channels too are working pretty well. But I think we focus more on socials.
All right, thank you so much. And maybe just, I'm actually curious about Sane's perspective on this question, talking about how relevant choice of platform for communicating with different audience segments are. And she's asking specifically about social media. So is that even something someone that's talking to big investors should be considering?
It depends. I don't think social media is the primary way of communicating to large investors. You need to find your own entry. You need to get a referral. You need to actually, in the end, just speak to a person. Well, ideally in real life, but at least over the phone. Social media, however, is important because any investor that you will approach will start doing their research. What I've found, especially in the international community, but more and more in Nigeria as well, is that having a proper LinkedIn profile is critical. If your LinkedIn profile is not complete and is not credible, then no investor will even make time to speak to you. So I don't think any social media presence in whichever way is going to lead to an immediate investment. But your public profile is important to open doors to be able to speak to investors and take it from there.
Thank you so much. So just quickly, I think we can take last words from the panelists. Another question just dropped actually. But maybe what we'll do is have the last words. We're kind of building the answer to this audience member's question in our last words. So I will just read out the question and then hand over to Sana and Joshua to give their last words. So there are some entrepreneurs who really know how to attract investors or to sell products, but they are timid and fearful, whether they will be borne down with their storytelling. So how do we deal with fear, basically, is this question. So please, let's just have those last words and we close. Sana, please over.
Yeah, let me actually jump in here. For starters, you will be turned down, and you will probably be turned down several times. But every rejection you get just brings you one step closer to what you want to achieve. And it is hard, definitely the first few times. But other than your own ego being hurt, you actually don't have so much to lose. You can just try. You only have something to win. So yes, you will get turned down. And yes, it is scary. Maybe linking that to just some final observations in terms of wrapping up this entire webinar, because I think that also helps with building your confidence. Firstly, a story is not just a story. A story is about the value you actually create. If you're not creating any value, there's nothing you can sell to anyone, not to investors, not to consumers. If you're not doing anything that somebody values, then there's nothing to be sold. So make sure you know what value you create. Second point is know the people you're dealing with. And find the right ones, find the right match for you. If you're a small startup, don't start approaching a huge investment bank in New York. They're not going to be interested. So find the people that work for you, the people that might be interested, the people you are able to reach, and with an appropriate audience, it's always easier because it's easier to relate. And I think the last point for me would be do the work. Things need attention. We all know the success story of Facebook, but there's work that went into it. We all know the success stories of a number of large companies, but there's years and years and years of work that went into it, and a lot of rejection and a lot of failure. And if you want to go on this journey, you need to accept that and be able to work through it.
Thank you so much. So Joshua, please, if you can
I'll just wrap it up by saying, everyone needs to look at their data. What is your data saying? That is, your data is literally what gives you an eyes to your business. So make sure you have someone. In fact, I always say that the CEO of any company should be one who understands and can interpret data very well. I think that's very important for someone high up there to be able to read data, because that's where all the improvements you can make on your product can come from. the sector is changing very rapidly. I think the banks, the commercial traditional banks, are beginning to see that they need to change their approach with regards how they sell their products and services, especially to young people. And I'd say it's more important for people to come out with real value propositions. Don't just go build another digital bank. I think we have too many already. So if you're coming up with a new digital bank, you need to come up with something different, for instance, right? And always look at the data, make sure you're not overspending, and make sure you're going into it for the right reason.
Thank you so much. And I think with that, we can really close on today's webinar. I've had a fantastic time. I don't know about other people on the webinar, but I think there have been a lot of insights on what we can do better in selling our products through stories, and some of the challenges, but also the ways to kind of attack those challenges and come out ahead. So thank you so much, Sani and Joshua. We've had a great time listening to you. And thank you so much to all our attendees. I hope everyone has a great remainder of the day. And we'll definitely see you next time.
All right.
Thanks everyone for attending, and thanks AFEX and Obianuju for organizing as well. It's been a pleasure.
Nice to meet you again, Sani. And thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.